The next thing what I would like to talk to you about are smart points. Now, what are smart points? In this project I have some examples for you. If you want to add a smart point, what you can do is you can just right click on a certain object and then say add smart point. When you say add smart point, you can choose either for it to be a note, a PI or a TML. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some examples. I'm just going to cancel this one here. I'm going to show you some examples of what we have here in the project. Now this green one here, this is a PI, so if I click on it, what it basically gives us is the value of an instrument, so a pressure instrument or a temperature instrument, which is then stored in a database and which is then connected to eShare and then shown here live in eShare. So what you see here on the right is the actual graph, and then if I click on the graph, I get it a little bit more detailed. Now here in the bottom, I have some options to see it, for example, in the last hour, or the last 8 hours, or 1 day. And what you can do as well is that here in the bottom, you can kind of like choose in how much detail you want to see this graph. So you can move it from this side, or you can move it from the other side. Or if you want to see a very specific place, so let's say for example this here is the highest place and we want to zoom in on it, you just left click and drag a certain area and then you zoom in on that specific part of the graph, and then you see that here in the bottom it is selected, and of course here you can make it a little bit bigger and a little bit smaller. And if you're done with viewing it, you can just simply click here on back. Coming back to the 3D model. Now, this was an example of a PI point. Now what you can do as well is you can do a TML point. Now, TML point can be used, for example, as in this case a thickness measurement of pipes. Now if I click on here, this smart point gets its information from either an Excel file or an SQL database which has been filled with thickness measurements in the last period, and then gets represented here in the 3D model over here as well. And then over here on the tank we also have another one, and then like that you can see the thickness measurements. Now what you can do as well is you can also, for example, add a note to your 3D model, and a note looks like this. So for example, let's say one of your people is walking through the factory and he's checking up on this valve, and this valve he notices that maybe some rubber ring or some part on this valve needs fixing. What he can then do is then just simply right click, add smart point, and then add a note. And then in the note he can basically fill in a description. So for example, please replace rubber ring on part. He names this note, for example, like needs fixing, and then like that you can put in notes for maintenance, which makes your life a lot easier. So this basically concludes everything on smart points.